Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Wattsburg Area School District, where we are student-centered and future-focused for a world-class education. The February 20th, 2023 regular board meeting is now called to order. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May we please have a roll call?
Mrs. Burlingham.
Here.
Mrs. Farrell.
Here.
Mrs. Hetherington.
Here.
Mrs. Lee.
Here.
Mr. Mattson.
Here.
Mr. Morvay.
Here.
Mrs. Pound.
Here.
Dr. Kuschak.
Here.
Mr. Blazer.
Present. Thank you. I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda and the addendum.
So moved. Kuschak.
Nicole, second.
Any discussion or revision to tonight's agenda and addendum? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries. The agenda and addendum are approved. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the January 16th, 2023 regular board meeting, the February 13th, 2023 work session, and Finance Committee meeting.
Morvay, so moved.
Second, Burlingham.
Any discussion or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. The minutes are approved. The chair recognizes Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Ken Berlin, for school reports.
Thanks, Mr. President. Mr. Calabrese, if you would introduce our school report, appreciate that. Thank you.
I just want to take a quick moment. I have Miss Lauren Zamperini, one of our third grade teachers here, and Kenzie Lee can come on up too. We're going to have Donnie Gibbons as well, and at the last minute, we got a car problem, so we got a little text from mom. So Kenzie's going to come up, and I'm going to let them kind of share a little bit about some of the cool stuff that we do in third grade when we have our social studies curriculum going on. So I'm going to step back and I'll leave them on to the stage.
All right, so we teach the Regents in third grade, and so we are going to share some of the fun things we do across the different curricular areas to spread that as well. So we learn about the types of landforms, the weather, the climate, the natural disasters, landmarks, culture, and ecosystems of each of those. So it's really cool how we can tie all of them in across. So one of the things we did was our Salto landforms. Donnie was going to bring his in, so I'm kind of sad he didn't make it. But we take Salto that we have some parents come in and help us create, and then we color it green, we color it blue, and create these cool landforms. So, sorry, I skipped it. But we also did Simon Says landforms, so Kenzie, you want to demonstrate with me? Okay, so we did Simon Says landforms, and so for example, we would say, Simon says mountain. So you do this, right? Yeah. Okay, and then we would do Simon says river. Right. And then when I just say plateau, do you make that shape? Yeah. Only Simon says, right? But if we wanted to represent a plateau, do you remember how we do that? Right? Our plateau shape, because it's tall edges and flat on the top. And then if we do one more, you ready? Simon says length. So we would do those motions, and we like to play, and we're quick, and it's just something to help them keep thinking about it and using their body. We've also played Simon Says Pictionary, which is really fun for them to have to think about how to draw it. But so some of our Salto landforms, this was Donnie's actually, that he was going to bring in, a couple more that we created, where they're designing it, making it, and then they have to label it. They draw a map of it, and they label what their landforms were. So that's how we started. And then we get into learning about the regions. We start with the Northeast region because that's where we live and that's where our country also began. So we read different texts from different places and we bring it in and learn about it in different ways to make it a little more exciting. The packets are really cool. They have all these great pictures, but we've also created these awesome PowerPoints where we draw a bunch of pictures in and stuff. And so the kids get to create different quick writes where they're writing about things. We do a landmark writing, so they do a lot of research. They use a graphic organizer, and they choose their own. So these are just some ones at the bottom. But so we used teams where Vanessa wrote about the Washington Monument, and we had Amelia also chose the Washington Monument. But they're learning how to insert a picture. They're typing. They're learning how to edit. Notice what all those things in Microsoft say that if this word's spelled wrong, or we need to make a grammatical correction. We also learned about how the Statue of Liberty, how it started as being copper, but how it's changed and now it's green color. It's kind of hard to see in the picture, but the kids get a great kick out of it, and they, love touching it and changing it, so that's cool. We're also tying in some art along with the science. We learned about the seasons and how they change, so they got to create their own little pictures of trees, how they look in each of the seasons, and they write a sentence about it as well. So kind of just fun. We learned how that all changes for plants and animals. We did a Hershey Kiss taste test because the Northeast has Hershey, of course. This is a favorite. And if you'll notice, some of these kids' faces are great as they're trying these different ones. So we create a writing about it, but we also create a graph and we map whose favorites were. I'm so sorry this picture didn't turn out great, but they write this cool opinion writing piece about what their favorite was and why. So pulling it in that way. We did a Protected Pilgrim as we were learning about the Mayflower and the Pilgrims in this area, which is a STEM challenge, and they had to build a structure that could survive the rain, snow, and wind. Rain being a spray bottle, wind being a blow dryer, and snow being the weight of a bottle sitting on top of it. So here, based on their supplies they had, here's a group that was working to create this structure. Didn't work so well for them, but some of the other ones figured out if you flip the plate over and they got to build with it and do a little more. So you can see it was a fun experience for us anyhow. We also have the Northeast Feast. This is the favorite. So we are really lucky where we get great parents who come and help prepare all this food and donate foods, but they got to try like whoopie pies are from the Northeast. If you don't know what that is, cake sandwich. Highly suggested. Giant Eagle makes the best. So maple syrup is from here, clam chowder, the saltwater taffy, cranberry juice, potato chips. I mean, some of these things you don't even realize. Ice cream, Ben and Jerry's. So we enjoyed that one. The blueberries, fluffernutter sandwiches. A lot of kids had never had those. For the next 2 weeks, I had kids eating that for snack every day. So that was really cool. Like I said, we have some parents who are wonderful and come in and help. Here we are trying some different snacks. So that's really fun for them. They enjoy it. As we continue, we go into the Southeast region next. We're only doing 2 regions that I'm talking about, and I don't want to give away too much for Missy Henry, but and I won't take too long for you guys either. But we do a lot with the civil rights because that's important for the kids to learn that was a lot of focus in the Southeast region, learning some different perspectives as well. So we read these different books, we watch them bring pop, that type of thing. We also expose them to different types of music, so that's really interesting for them to hear with clips, for them to check out. In music class, they were also singing Go Susanna at the same time we were learning about this, so I heard that song a lot as well. Disney Day was our biggest event, though. It was really cool. So all of 3rd grade does this. They all also did the Northeast Feast. And we transformed the room overnight. Mrs. Lee was so kind and came in and helped me this year to transform the room, actually. And the whole day is based on Disney-themed activities, but it's totally academic. So we read like a biography of Walt Disney, and then they were answering questions about it. So here they are kind of reading and answering. They get to wear their ears all day, which is really cool. They did an opinion writing as well here where they chose their favorite Disney movie, and we were helping them really use like a checklist to make sure that they are hitting on everything they need to do. We got some really great writing pieces. This one on the right is Kenzie. So she wrote about the Little Mermaid. Do you want to tell them anything about your writing piece you did, Ken?
I wrote it about the Little Mermaid because I live see the creature is in the hole. So because it's like so much color, look at what the color of the whole bowl.
Really great reasoning. I like it. We also work on summarizing the movie as well, so that's a great skill for them, whether it's reading or writing and such, or watching, sorry. All day long they were doing where they got to purchase these really cool souvenirs. So again, really great parents who sent things in. And every time they purchased an item, they had to list what it was, say how much it cost, and they had to round it. And at the end, they had a total of how much money they spent, which was really enjoyable for them. They came home with a ton of stuff. We did math task cards as well. So they're doing elapsed time, they're making changes, they're doing measurement, they're counting coins, they're doing addition and subtraction because of all these things. So this was cool for them. Mrs. Malik chose to do it in this way where the kids had packets. A lot of us do like to go around the room type of thing. But I wanted to make sure I included pictures from all of 3rd grade. So that was one of those. So Disney Day, this is one of our classes where they're all dressed up, kind of waiting. I think they had a snack at that time. We have another class where they're dressing up as well for their Disney Day stuff. And then that's our classroom, so Miss Kenzie. But Kenzie, do you have anything that you want to share about all the things that we mentioned, or any of the things we mentioned? What was your favorite part of Disney Day?
My favorite part of Disney Day is the ocean thing.
We we did a virtual field trip at the end where they got to go to each of the different parks and we watched, they had clips of the shows that they put on in the parks. We did the rides where you're putting your hands up and we put our chairs in an order. So it was like you're getting on. We got to watch fireworks shows. They met some of the characters, just some of those fun things. So yeah, that was really neat. Anything else from the pictures that you want to tell them about? Like I said, I don't want to ruin the rest of the regions for Kenzie, but we will also cover the Southwest, the Midwest, and the West, and do a bunch of things similar to that as well.
And thanks, Kenzie.
Yeah, awesome job.
Also, Ms. Zambrini won the Golden Apple Award.
Lots of parent volunteers, just throwing that out there. And just to let the board know too, we're having parents coming in. There was a letter that went home last week on Wednesday that parents can come in and have their birthday with their son or daughter. So we're trying to get more parents in. So feel free to come in and volunteer and eat whoopie pies and all that.
That's all for school reports.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is guest citizen comments. No one has signed up to speak to us this evening. The chair recognizes Dr. Ken Berlin for superintendent's report.
Thanks, Mr. President. So this year, one of the things I've been trying to do is share with the board things that we were doing with the board's help, leadership-wise and financial-wise, to move ourselves forward. I recently earned my doctorate, and I chose to study how we implemented technology here over about a 8 to 9 year period. So I'm going to give you just a high-level overview because this is something that started almost a decade ago, and it's been quite a journey to get to this point where there is a PC, a machine, a tablet or laptop in every student's hands. Many of them take them home, and well, we've been working with the staff over a period of time to teach them how to teach with technology, because that has evolved considerably as I'm going to kind of go through that. So I'm not going to bore you with the full text of my doctorate. I don't even think I've been able to get my mother to read it. But I'll give you a high-level overview and just kind of drill into, what I discovered about the school and how we can use some of this research to make things better for our students. So the basic framework for a study is the same no matter where you do it, what the topic is. I kind of paraphrased it here. They use some fancier words, but those bullets stand for the chapters in the doctorate for the most part. But I've just kind of reduced those down to more common terms that we are all familiar with. So I'm going to start with the introduction. And I did what's called a mixed method study. So I collected hard quantitative data to look at how we're using technology, and then I also collected from the teachers some qualitative data, which is just open-ended information from them, and then there was a process for coding and categorizing that data to draw conclusions out of it. And that actually turned out to be one of the more useful pieces of data in the whole study. And I didn't anticipate that because I'm a numbers person. I like hard numbers. I like to be able to crunch numbers and run statistical analysis on things so I can know for sure. But when you're dealing with people and teaching and learning and all those types of things we interact with, it's hard to codify things with numbers. So that's why I try to capture both sides of the issue. So my research problem was, is this program effective? We spend upwards of $750,000 a year on technology. And that's grown considerably since we have all of these laptops, about 160 laptops, plus the massive expansion in Wi-Fi and the servers to support all that. So the purpose of my research was to find out if things are effective and what we can do to improve what we're doing. So, ta-da, it's not earth-shattering, but if I really sum things up in one sentence, technology has really enhanced our learning environment here. It's radically changed how teachers approach things. In fact, Ms. Samperini was just talking about how they use technology in a classroom, and I can mention more about that in a minute. But our professional development is what's holding us back taking that next step. So we'll go just a little bit deeper. In fact, I kind of covered both of these issues, the look back and what the study's focus is. And then I broke down my approach and data collection into 4 questions. And this is really another common technique in research, is to develop a primary question and then break it into sub-questions. Then you decide what kind of data you're going to collect around each of those questions. And then when you roll that up and compare data, hopefully it supports each other. That's a process called triangulation. I won't get into that here, but that's kind of the purpose for asking multiple questions that seem somewhat the same, because they all support the basic premise that you're looking at. So moving on here, one of the things the first things you do when you are in a research study or when you're conducting one is to become an expert in that material. So there's a process called a literature review, and it is probably 2/3 of the whole project, if not longer. You learn everything there is to learn. You look through study after study that has come before you that's similar to what you're looking at. So I'm not going to go back to the very beginning of time here, but technology and education go hand in hand. We've always used things to write clay tablets, and then the Egyptians came along and better developed basic paper, pens, that type of thing. Slate chalkboards came around, and then they were, in fact, it started as slate and it turned into chalkboards after the 1500s. The printing press is one of the first really major pieces of man-made technology that was disruptive. I mean, we're used to disruptive technology right now because, you know, we're living through how the internet has kind of upended how we do things in life. 15 years ago, we probably still all had a checkbook, or you balanced your checkbook, and you might still do that out of habit, but it's almost not necessary anymore because of how disruptive banking technology has been and making those things so much more automated. So the printing press was one such thing, and it forced the need for people to learn how to read in the world because knowledge became more valuable. The Roaring '20s, if you take, I mean, we're very fortunate, I think, in our lifetime to have seen just an unbelievable growth of technology. Now, we weren't around in the '20s, but this is when things really got rolling. So if I put up a timeline here, electricity, Thomas Edison, AC and DC power, that got solidified in the '20s, and we wired houses with the first lights, and then radio technology and film came along. The overhead projector there, just to the left of 1945, that was a Navy project, believe it or not, in the early '40s to train World War II soldiers quickly on things, and that was really the beginning of PowerPoints. You know, it just wasn't a marker on a piece of self-made prepared slides that they put on there. And then of course, World War II really kicked off a technology revolution. You might recognize to the right there, what's that called? It's not from the Matrix. Sputnik. So that was the first satellite to go up. And then the Xerox machine came out, kind of a second coming of the printing press, completely revolutionized how we do things. Because all of a sudden in schools, you weren't just limited to books. You know, you could get a worksheet, you could get copies of things, you could quickly disseminate new information. Then in the 70s, we have this solid state technology coming out of the Apollo programs and calculators. And I actually remember using a calculator that looked like that. So then moving into the 70s, this is when things really get blazing, and it's when the microcomputer gets developed, mostly by hackers in their garages. Bill Gates, Stephen Jobs, George Wozniak, the creators of Apple and Microsoft. You know, those folks were working on these kits, and one of the first kits was the Altair 800. And I didn't know about this until I started digging into it, but this machine, actually the code for this machine became the basis for Microsoft's operating system. This was built by a calculator company in New Mexico, and they hired Bill Gates, who was just out of Harvard or MIT, to write the basic operating system for this thing. And from there, people started assembling these kits that got more and more intricate. Eventually, Bill Gates, I found an article, him and this company had a huge argument over his payment. And he struck off, took his code, and created Microsoft, and we know where that left him. It was a pretty good decision at the time, probably, or at least now we know it was. And then Apple IIe's, I remember these in high school. Does anybody remember these? They made us learn basic programming. That was like the big kick. One of the big kicks. In fact, like I love Excel now, and I think it's because I was made to write code all the time in high school. And we were really nerds. We tried to make video games and show up each other and that kind of thing. But all of this in the 80s there was an argument over how we're going to use computers, and that's kind of playing out again right now. So it went back between computer-assisted instruction, basic programming, like I said, and computer applications, word processing, spreadsheets, those kind of things. So all of those things were being taught in school, but there wasn't a cohesive plan. But that got disrupted as computers got better and smaller. The microcomputers started to come out, desktop computers, and then it became about pedagogy. What do we do with these computers besides just show students how to use them? So moving up our timeline, very dramatic and turbulent invention was this Web 2.0, internet applications and access around the globe. This all happened around 2000. And I remember going to the library for the first time and seeing a computer that had Netscape on it. And I was like, what is this? And then the librarian showed me, well, you can look up articles and stuff. And I'm like, I'm looking at all these books at the Edinburgh Furness Library going, I could spend a lifetime digging through those. I can get right to what I want with this new technology. And of course, we all use that today. We don't even think about it. And then finally, well, Web 2.0 made the web friendlier. All of a sudden, it's not people typing HTML code and just looking at pages. It's interactive. It's YouTube. It's wiki. It's blogs. All that kind of thing. And then once stable Wi-Fi was added to it, then we see computers really taking off in schools, because the obstacle of hardwiring school buildings all of a sudden melts into the background. So looking at one-to-one technology programs, getting past the technology, schools that have really effective programs, these are the things that happen, and we're seeing some of this here. But students often are much more engaged. We see improvements in their writing skills because of the way they interact with technology. They get instant feedback when they write and that type of thing. Moving on a little farther, what are effective practices that you can employ, that others have employed, to make your one-to-one program, to get the most out of your one-to-one program, I guess is the best way to say that. So these are all things that the research says effective programs have in common. And so I went specifically looking when I was collecting data here for these things and to what extent we comport with this. And I like this quote from one of the many articles I read. You're changing the system, the culture. It's a massive shift in how people think. You know, all of a sudden you're not trying to stay a week ahead and get to the Xerox machine and make a packet for something new. You know, you can find the resources online. You can bookmark it for the students. You know, you can do some quick prep work, and all of a sudden everyone's looking at the same stuff instantly. All right, so what's the impact on student achievement? So if you do these things well, students are engaged. It's actually in this order. So writing is at the top. One-to-one technology seems to impact the most, and it does it the quickest in terms of developing writing. And a lot of the research says that's just because of the instant feedback, the way students can write, and share things much quicker than they used to. You know, if we have a student working on a writing prompt at their desk, the teacher can look at it while they're working on it and provide instant feedback. So that feedback loop is part of why researchers have found writings at the top, followed closely by reading, because we have a lot of, like IXL, we were just talking about that. It's on the agenda tonight. You know, that's a scaffold program that really meets kids where they're at, especially with reading levels, and can tell the teacher, look, this is where the students are, these are the skills that they seem to be lacking and what's needed to move them forward. Math and science are a little less impacted by technology, but I think that is going to evolve. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but when you use technology, like anything else, there's a hierarchy of how it impacts, how you use it and how it impacts your level of learning. So if you've ever taken an Education 101 class, Bloom's taxonomy is on the right. That's been around for a long time, 60 plus years, I would say. And you can see that, you know, knowledge is the first thing that you have to consume, and then you comprehend it, and then, you know, as your learning is refined, these things follow to the point where you can evaluate something new that incorporates all the concepts below. Well, technology use, the SAMR model, substitution, augmentation, modification, this is the same kind of idea, but in technology. And so this became, you know, this is something I found in literature. It's all over the place in the past 10 years. So this became a focus for how I wanted to look at how our teachers are doing things. That's the simplest way to say it. So how about an example that was talked about today with Ms. Samperini's class? You know, substitution, using technology for substitution, that would be like taking notes on a word processor or something. You know, it's just storing it for you, but you could just as easily do it on a notebook, right? A piece of paper, right? Augmentation is that next level where now you're using multiple tools at your fingertips to not just substitute, but make what you're doing a little better, has more value. Like they put some pictures into those write-ups. You know, they researched on the internet, they got the cut and paste. That's something you really can't do as easily without technology. You've augmented what you're doing, especially with spell check. I think Ms. Samperini mentioned that. Spell checks, synonyms, all those tools that make things better, augments it. And then in the upper levels, you get into modification. And then finally, redefinition. We see this at the high school sometimes, but at the other levels as well. It's hard to get to that level because you're using technology in ways that, and you're doing lessons and creating things that could not be done any other way. A multimedia presentation that's shared simultaneously with all of your friends, and they give you instant feedback over the internet. Now that's like redefinition. So getting to the results, and I won't talk about how we collected data and analyzed it, just get to what we found here. Quantitative, qualitative data all indicate that technology is effective. The teachers really unanimously believe that it's had a positive impact on our students. More so, the elementary, their perception is just a little bit more favorable than the high school. And that's something I want to investigate further. That's one of our tasks for improving. But it probably has to do with specific subject level matter and helping the teachers to learn how to integrate technology into higher level subjects. English language learning was rated positive, K through 12 across the board. And math and science, just like in the research I found, was mixed. Some teachers thought, well, this does make an impact, and some didn't think that it made much of an impact or wasn't very relevant. So all the benefits and challenges that were discovered in the literature review were consistently it consistently showed up in the data from the teachers. I don't know what happened to that screen. Oh, okay. So in collecting some of the data, I just started to kind of categorize it. Yeah, technology's really working well. And so what are the benefits of students having PCs? I wanted to find out if that lined up with the research. And it really does. I mean, our staff, it's very dramatic. They really felt that the ease of access, the instantaneous nature of which you can pivot on a dime instructionally, and how you can tailor instruction to a specific lesson or to specific students, they rated that, that is something that happens a lot in their classroom, and the research found that that's what effective programs do. So that's a positive. And I also asked the teachers about the challenges of technology. And of course, I had read about those in the literature review. And the number one thing that can be a challenge is just the time to learn new technology. And that includes being exposed to it and having time to collaborate. So the overall effectiveness of our professional development, how we've done in training the teachers. Now keep in mind, the turnover we've had over the past 5 to 7 years. So a lot of the staff that started with us on this journey were not the ones that I collected data from. So that is a limitation, but this was something that showed up. The technology integrators, we have 2 in each building. These are teachers that we send regularly to professional development. And the research and the data I collected shows that it's effective, but here we're not utilizing them as much as we could be. So that's an area that we're going to look into. But the teachers overwhelmingly agreed with the research, even though they didn't read it, right? That's part of this process. If we're going to get better, they really are unanimous that we need to differentiate our training. It has to be subject specific, has to have adequate time so they can share with each other. So we have some ideas on how we can make that happen. Things frequently mentioned in the literature, again, were just supported by what the teachers said. These are the things that you need to do to have an effective program, and this is the kind of professional development that you need to support it. So just ripping through my 4 research questions. Is it effective? Yeah, it's effective. It's really overhauled how we do things. K6 seems to perceive that it's more effective than 712, and our professional development was moderately successful. To what extent? If I go back to that Sammer, Bloom's taxonomy thought, concept, we do substitution augmentation very well. We do it frequently, almost every day. Those higher level things like modification or redefinition occur with less frequency. And there is research to indicate that the more you can get into that upper level, the better off students, or the more benefits students get. So that's an area that we want to work on. And of course, strengths and weaknesses. Teachers agree that even though this is challenge, it's created challenges from when we started with the virtualized machines and the Wi-Fi and problems with applications up till now, it's worth it. We talked about that. So just looking ahead, these are recommendations. We need to have frequent, short, content-specific training sessions with teachers, collaboration time. There's a lot of steps to that. But we have time built into the day with the teachers monthly to do trainings. We've been doing a lot of curriculum alignment, things like this past year, for example. But that time's flexible, so we can kind of shift to incorporating short content-specific sessions with teachers on a regular basis. Maybe we do a 30-minute session every Tuesday each month. And the teachers then have time to absorb that and work with each other. We may need to increase technology integrators to get that subject content specific application. So we might want to send tech integrators in the subject of math to get trained in an area that's being used successfully, bring that back, and then focus on that just with the math teachers, because we don't need to spread it beyond them. Obviously, we want to get more focused. And then as we go down the road, we may need additional IT help because we're adding equipment and features all the time. So that's just a high-level view. Hopefully I didn't spend 15 minutes. That's not too bad for 2 years of research. But I appreciate the board supporting me in doing that. And I'm going to try to take what I've learned and work with the tech integrators. I'm meeting with them in March. We're going to go through some of this in more detail and start to flesh out our plans to improve what we do with teaching and learning and technology. And that's
Can I ask a question about that?
absolutely.
You mentioned that we may have to hire more integrators, but in the previous slide, we talked about them being underutilized. So are we digging into the underutilization first before we think that we need more of them?
Yeah, so like that's the step next year, is to make sure that we build in those regular short collaboration periods of time that all teachers go to, because we have these required after school professional development sessions built into their time. So yes.
Okay.
So that's first, and then diversify would be second, once we see what the benefit of that first step is.
Thank you.
And just a clarifying question to that, the technology integrators, those are current staff members, correct?
So yeah, those are teachers, and some of the underutilized aspect of that is they've gone to faculty meetings on occasion, but we haven't scheduled anything regularly. They have periods of time where they're free during the day, and teachers can seek them out or ask for their assistance. That model has gotten us this far, but from what the research says, we need to formalize that more, and in the specific ways that I outlined to get the most effective. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Thanks. Are there any other questions for
Mr. President,
Dr. Berlin?
I would just like to
Okay.
recognize our superintendent for selecting a project that benefits our district and our students. He could have selected really anything he wanted to, but to focus on this that has been a goal from the board to improve and enhance what we're doing, that's compliments to him for selecting that to benefit not only himself in his research progression, but also our students and our faculty and ultimately our community. And this will help us plan for the future. So I just wanted to recognize him for that particular item.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Thank you, Dr. Kuschak.
Thank you.
She's not. Yeah, she wasn't sure if she could connect. So.
Okay, so we just approve them. What was anybody want to review these?
If you want to move into that, if there's
Sure.
questions on it. Ms. Bendig is is out of town right now. She wanted to remote in, but she couldn't because of her location in Aruba.
We
You
no
feel
longer
so
feel
bad for
sorry for
her.
her.
She will not be connected.
Which line item in the general fund budget is that?
Right, so she went over her treasurer
Not funny.
reports briefly. We had sent this out in the weekly update, but I'm happy to go over questions that the board might have over any of the individual reports, the items they're in, or any of the bill exhibits.
So why don't I entertain a motion to approve the reports, payments, and invoices as presented?
Morvay, so moved.
Second, Pushcheck.
Is there any discussion or questions on any of the items under the business administrator's report? I had a quick one, and maybe you'll know the answer, maybe you won't. I was just looking at our overall revenue, and this early in the year, well, this part of the year, we're already 97% collected on real estate tax, so that's great. But I just saw that the funds from the state and feds are slow, as I know they normally are. I didn't know if we had any sense of when those would come in. I was just curious if we expected that, basically.
Yeah, so that pattern plays itself out pretty much annually. The local property tax income revenue that we receive in the first half of the year gets us through to the second half of the year when the larger amounts of basic ed funding and the federal title and special ed funding starts to flow. It actually all comes through the state. The federal title funding is kind of a pass-through through Pennsylvania, and they push it on to us. So that's a very normal revenue pattern.
Great. Hearing no other discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. There are no items on the agenda under legal advisement tonight. The chair recognizes Mr. Stephen Morvay for finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have 3 items on the original agenda as well as 1 item on the addendum for tonight under finance. The first item is a transfer listing. Motion to approve the following transfers: monthly budgetary transfer in the budget to actual as outlined in Exhibit E, as well as a little over $17,000 from committed fund to unassigned for the purchase of steel whiteboards. A little over $26,000 from committed fund to unassigned for the purchase of the laser engraver for the high school. $10,500 from committed fund to unassigned for the concession stand HVAC. Almost $2,500 from the committed fund to the unassigned for the roof work at the vent and blower at the high school CAD lab, and a little over $15,000 from committed fund to capital projects for high school auditorium lighting and sound upgrades, and then $293,000 from committed fund to capital projects for the carpet replacement at Wattsburg Area Elementary School. So moved.
Second, Farrell.
Thank you. Is there any discussion or questions on F1? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
The next item is item F2, which is the local audit report for the fiscal year. Motion to approve the local audit report for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022, as prepared by VWB. That was presented to us in our work session last week. And again, just as a reiteration, it was a clean audit with no comments or modifications for our approval. So moved.
Second, Pushcheck.
Thank you. Is there any question or discussion on F2? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
The next item is item F3, which is the Erie County Technical School budget for the 23-24 school year. The motion is to approve the 23-24 general fund operating budget for the Erie County Technical School, secondary programs, etc. As presented for adoption, the 23-24 general budget includes, that's our general budget, includes expenditures and contributions for the Wattsburg Area School District contribution portion as noted in the agenda. One quick item, just as maybe a little bit to flesh out, in general, and I know this was presented to the superintendents as well, the overall budget for the technical school increased by 3.12% as an overall, fairly in line with other expenditure increases. Our specific Wattsburg Area School District contribution actually decreased to the tune of about 4%, and that's basically based upon our running average of student participation. If If you recall, that's how our contribution limits or our contribution rate is calculated, and it's a 3-year running average. And so our 3-year running average actually decreased for this calendar year, or for this school year, excuse me, and which resulted in our decrease contribution for this year. It's about a $17,000 decrease in our contribution, but overall, the budget has increased a little over 3%. So I don't know if there's any other questions on the technical school budget, since I am the technical school representative.
We need to
For
move
Wattsburg
the
area.
motion before discussion.
Right.
Oh, fair enough, I'm sorry.
That was your
So,
motion.
so that's my motion, Mr. President.
The second, Farrell.
Thank you. Is there any discussion or question on the Erie County Technical School budget? You have anything else you want to add?
No.
No? Good. All right.
If there was anything
Thank you.
that was needed to be added.
Sure. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
And lastly, Mr. President, item on the addendum, Finance F4 budgetary amendment to approve the budgetary amendment as outlined in attachment 1. So moved.
Nicole, second.
Thank you. Is there any questions or discussions on F4, the budgetary amendment? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. President. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Morvay. The chair recognizes Mr. Sean Matson for Building and Grounds.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have 2 items under buildings and grounds this evening. B1, the district natural gas contract. A motion to approve the contract with Mid-American Natural Resources LLC beginning March 2023 through August 2024 as outlined in Exhibit F. So moved.
Second, Burlingham.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or discussions on B1? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
B2, carpet replacement. A motion to approve the replacement of carpeting in the elementary center as an estimated cost of $293,312.60 as outlined in Exhibit G. So moved.
Nicole, second.
Thank you. Any questions or discussions on B2? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
And that's all I have this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mattson. Chair recognizes Ms. Nicole Lee for personnel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have 9 items tonight, so without objection, I would like to pass all 9 in a single motion. P9 is on the addendum for your consideration. So they would include P1, ESS substitute additions, P2, service substitute additions, P3, leave requests, P4, monthly travel and conference, meal cost reimbursement, P5, conference requests as listed, P6, resignations as listed, P7, job description, P8, kindergarten boot camp as listed, and P9, which is on the addendum, appointments. So moved.
Second, Heatherington.
Thank you. Is there any question or discussion on the 9 items under personnel? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Those motions carry. Thank you, Mrs. Lee. The chair recognizes for curriculum, Dr. Andy Pushcheck. You're up.
We're not going to do policy?
Oh, did I skip?
Way to skip me, Jeremy.
I'm looking at the addendum, sorry. The chair recognizes Mrs. Amanda Farrell for policy.
Thank you. Just one item tonight. So for this evening, policy second reading, the motion to approve the second reading of policy 124, alternative instruction methods as outlined in Exhibit I. So moved.
Second, Mattson.
Thank you. Is there any questions or discussions on PL1? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Now, for curriculum, Dr. Andy Pushcheck.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have 3 items for your consideration tonight. C1 is the Robert Morris MOU. C2 is the senior banquet. C3 is the IXL agreement with the update on the addendum. Without objection, I'll move all 3 items. So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any question or discussion on the 3 items under curriculum?
I have one.
Mrs. Powell.
Who decides on where the senior banquet gets held?
Who decides where the senior banquet is hosted?
That, the class that puts on well, and I was thinking of prom,
So was I.
yeah.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
The senior class and their advisor, they.
So the seniors.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion?
I have one. I know we've talked a lot about the memorandum of understanding, so I apologize because I know this has been answered, but if we, going with the one with Robert Morris, are we able to have others still as well? Yes, that was, yes, okay, that's what I thought. And we're just shortening the length of term for the IXL agreement, is that correct?
Right. Correct. All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Those motions carried.
That's all I have this evening under curriculum, Mr. President.
Thank you, Dr. Bushcheck. For technology, I recognize Ms. Leah Hetherington.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have one item, TE1, and it is the IDEX Focus Subscriber License Agreement as listed below. So moved.
Nicole, second.
Thank you. Is there any questions or discussions on TE1? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Thank you, Ms. Hetherington. Chair recognizes Ms. Brittany Burlingham for transportation.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have one item under transportation this evening. T1, transportation request. Motion to approve the transportation request and ratification of field trip since last meeting as outlined in Exhibit L. So moved.
Second, Bushcheck.
Thank you. Is there any discussion or questions on T1? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Burlingham. The chair recognizes Ms. Tara Pound for athletic and extracurricular.
Thank you. I have 4 items total, and I would like to move AE1, AE2, and AE4 together, and then AE3 separate, if I can. So AE1, the volunteer list, and there are some additions on the addendum, just additions to AE1 and AE4. AE1 is a volunteer list, AE2 is the athletic resignations, and AE4 are the coaching appointments. So moved.
Nicole, second.
Thank you. Is there any questions or discussions on AE1, AE2, and AE4? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you.
And then AE3, the extracurricular appointment to approve the appointment of Laura Pushtek as a Rainbow Facilitator at step 1 for the 2022-23 school year. So moved.
Farrell, second.
Thank you. Is there any questions or discussions on AE3?
Mr. President,
Dr.
I
Bushcheck?
abstain from this vote as the person is my spouse.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions?
Abstain.
Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you, Mrs. Powell. And congratulations to Mrs. Paris as our new track coach. Under miscellaneous, we do not have anything this evening.
There's one item on the agenda.
There is one item on the addendum. Goodness, you're here, Dr. Christian. We have one item under miscellaneous. M1 is Meadows Agreement, the motion to approve the letter of agreement between the Meadows Psychiatric Center and the Wattsburg Area School District for the 2023-24 and 24-25 school years as outlined in attachment 3.
So moved, Bushcheck.
Second, Hetherington.
Thank you. Is there any questions or discussions on M1? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Up for the Erie County Technical School Report, Mr. Steve Morvay.
Mr. President, this is the report from our December board meeting, so I'll display that now. We had 2 representatives of Wattsburg Area School District under the Students of the Month in December. We had Hannah Curtis as well as Michael Spires, and I will attach those and email those to you, so you'll be able to post those into the meeting notes. We also had our budget audited, and the report from the auditor again was a clean and unmodified report, so that is a positive for the technical school. Also during the budget, again, as I discussed, we went through those percentages as well as our participation rate, et cetera. Those were explained to all the various districts in attendance at the tech school board meeting. Also, we had approved that there were some leftover COVID monies that were moved from the fund balance into the capital reserve funds. If you recall, when the project was approved, there was the discussion about how do we not have this large expenditure in the next 15 to 20 years. Well, this leftover COVID dollars was used to create a capital reserve fund, which is basically the initial seeding of that reserve fund and that maintenance fund, and that will be an ongoing thing year by year. So that was the start of the process to hopefully avoid these large capital expenditures where we have to take bonds and go to the districts, with large expenditures going forward. We also we reviewed and had a Q&A with actually 2 of the director candidates that were brought forth by the director search committee. Those 2, there would be another round of interviews and whatnot by the search committee. That would be done. That's done probably currently, so we'll have a next update actually this Thursday with our next board meeting as well. There's also a couple of still open positions that they're still looking for, custodian and instructional aides, so those are ongoing. One of the items that also was explored next year would be under the curriculum would be an expansion in the facilities maintenance program for an RV technician. Given the expansion of RV usage, there's a potential that the RV world could do a certification for RV repair, restorations, etc. under the facility maintenance program. So that's being looked into as well. And then as well, just some statistics. There's the students. There's 777 students, which is 85% capacity. That's up over 72 students from last year, and no program has less than 60% participation. So there currently no program is in danger of being dropped at this point over at the tech school. So that's my report, Mr. President. Unless there's any other questions or comments for me.
Are there any questions for Mr. Morvay? I just have one. So you talk a lot about how the numbers overall in school keep going up, and I thought our participation was also going up. So when I saw that decrease and our 3-year average was down, is that just because compared to other schools they're adding even more students, or?
Correct. So we kind of had the statistics are in the budget report. You can look. So we were down in 19 to 20. We had a large increase in 20 to 21, and then from 21 into 22 we dropped about 4 or 5 students. So it's just kind of cyclical, I think. And other schools, if you can, the charts that are presented in the budget report, you'll notice they go 10 years back. Every one of them goes up and down. And so in fact, our previous contribution in 21 to 22 was increased by 16%. So we've now dropped back 40. And I think this year's largest percentage increase was Fairview. I think they went up 28% this year. So it just depends.
So one chart shows the average cost per student across all districts, and they're all within, non-statistically significant range, probably.
Yeah, let's not go there.
Let's not go there. Okay. Thank you for that report, Mr. Morvay.
Yes, Mr. President.
For the Northwest Tri-County Intermediate Unit, Dr. Andy Pushek.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to follow up on one item that I had previously sent to the board in between board meetings. And that was a document prepared by the IU that was entitled State Mandates. I sent it electronically to the board. And just please be reminded that we are responsible to follow the 176 state mandates. This is just state. And the reason that the IU publishes this is most of these mandates have a lot of pass-through money through the IU. So the IU serves as a liaison to many districts for a lot of these mandates. But in addition to providing the best possible education and facilities, we have 176 things that we have to make sure by law that we're attending to within our district. So just wanted to remind the board of that item. Within each of your folders tonight, you will see an IU5 preliminary budget, similar to the vote tech. This will come to the board for a vote in March, and then after the IU will approve it first, and it will come to all of our districts, and then the IU will submit that to the state. Just wanted to highlight, if you look at the page with the 2 pie charts, it looks like this. Approximately $67 million is the IU budget, and less than $1 million of those dollars comes from the school district. So you can see that the large majority is from federal and state and local grants that the IU runs through. You can see that the school district allocations are listed in here as well. For the general program for special ed services, as well as early intervention services. And again, a lot of these are required mandates that the IU oversees. You will see this for approval with our contribution of $27,000 for general membership, $700 for district support, and then $3,000 again for some other district support. So those items, those numbers will be on your March agenda for your consideration. But this is just a brief summary of those areas. But just so you're aware, over $67 million budget, only $1 million comes from the contributing schools. And that's my report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Are there any, questions for Dr. Bushek?
Dr. Bushek, I didn't
Yes.
get a copy of that in my folder, so I.
That's why I had one extra.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have it here for you. I
Perfect.
apologize.
Thank you, Dr. Bushek. That brings us to board correspondence and dialogue. Anything from the board this evening? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Amanda.
Nicole, second.
Thanks. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We're adjourned.